Hello, and welcome to our second segment on Tasmanian Pictorial Stamps, produced by the Rocky Mountain Philatelic Library. I'm Ron Mitchell. This time we'll look at the years 1901 through 1913, after the Commonwealth of Australia was founded by British Parliament. During this period, many changes occurred with the pictorial stamp issues of Tasmania. We'll take a look at those changes and how they affected the quality of the issues. The original 8 Tasmanian pictorial stamps were printed in London by De La Rue and Company using steel engravings and printed with copper plates. The quality of printing was excellent and very consistent. But that all changed in September 1901 when an official letter was sent to the De La Rue Company stating, "It has been decided to print all future issues of Tasmanian postage stamps in Victoria." It also said, essentially, that the original plates should be returned to Melbourne as soon as possible. Here's what brought this change about. In the late 1890s, a number of conventions were held throughout the Australian colonies on the subject of federation. Australia was made up of 6 self-governing colonies of the British Empire. Federation would combine them into one nation, the Commonwealth of Australia. Each colony kept the systems of government that they had developed as separate colonies, but also would have a federal government that was responsible for matters concerning the whole nation. In July 1900, the Commonwealth of Australia Constitution Act was passed by the British Parliament. In September 1900, Queen Victoria proclaimed that the Commonwealth of Australia would come into existence January 1, 1901. In honor of this proclamation, the Australian government issued a commemorative stamp honoring Queen Victoria and the Federation in May of 2000. Control of all post offices and postal services passed to the new Commonwealth government. However, the 6 colonies, including Tasmania, were given 5 years to continue to provide postal service until new Commonwealth stamps and government services could be established. The first Australian Commonwealth stamps were delayed by political infighting and opposition to the design. In fact, the first stamp series wasn't issued until 12 years later, in January 1913. Tasmania continued using the original 1899 De La Rue pictorial stamps because of the delay in issuing the first Commonwealth stamps. The Commonwealth began printing pictorials for Tasmania as the supply of De La Rue stamps dwindled. Compared side by side, it's easy to see the print quality of the original 1899 De La Rue printing far exceeds that of the later Commonwealth printings. The quality of the reprinted pictorial stamps in Australia went down. The lack of sharpness and poor paper quality are obvious. There are other differences as well that we will explore. Every line on this chart shows a different variety of watermarked paper for stamp collectors to seek out. To make matters worse, the watermark was designed for use with smaller stamps, thus producing many more variations. There are even more variations because some of the stamps were lithographed and some were printed by the electrotype method. The printers were sloppy about the direction of the paper when it went through the press. Here we see the normal position of a watermark. And 2 others, one sideways and one inverted. This sideways example is on a 2-pence value. Other examples on 1-penny stamps, one inverted and one sideways. Colors varied so dramatically that catalogs give major numbers to them. These are just random examples from the Scott catalog. Perforations provide another major area of varieties. Often they were not uniform. Here, the yellow arrows point to vertical perforations of gauge 12.5 and gauge 11 on the same sheet, resulting with single stamps having different perforations on their sides, known as compound perforations. For reference, The engraved 1899 stamps had no variations and uniform perforation gauge 14 on all stamps. The Stanley Gibbons catalog show the original 8 pictorials had no variations. Starting with the 1901 issue, there are many variations. Stamp catalogs devote many pages to listing the variations of the 8 pictorial stamps printed between 1901 and 1913. Various perfins or perforated initials were used over the years on the pictorial stamps. Most of these perfins can be found on the 1901 to 1913 issues. For example, the AWF on the lower right stamp stands for Australian Widows Fund. Perfins are a security measure to prevent both the theft of stamps and use for personal mail. The T perfin was used for official Tasmanian government mail. A lack of quality control resulted in irregular perfins. Here's an example of the way the government used the T perfin. Another perfin frequently seen during this period is the A, named for George Adams, who became head of Tattersall's Lottery in Tasmania in 1881. An ad on the side of a supermarket in Ulverstone is evidence the lottery continues today. Here's an example of a Tattersall entry mailed in 1903 from Oatlands, Tasmania, to a Tattersall agent in Hobart. People throughout Australia and other countries who entered the lottery would mail their entry to one of a number of agents in Hobart. Upon receipt, the cover and entry were impaled on a vertical spike file, which accounts for the hole in all such covers. In 1912, Tasmania was running out of the 1-penny stamp, and rather than reprint the stamp again, a 1-penny overprint was applied on the 2-pence stamp, intended to last until the new Commonwealth stamp came out by the end of the year. The printer's mark appears on the original Victoria printing of this block. It identifies James Bradley Cook, one of the first Commonwealth stamp printers. The pictorial stamps were used until the end of 1912. These are examples of the last 3 years of use. The introduction of the Kangaroo and Map Stamps in January 1913 put an official end to the use of postage stamps printed for individual colonies. For the collector who wants to study Tasmanian pictorials in more detail, there are many references available. I would like to express our sincere thanks to Ron Hill, who is an active member and volunteer at the Rocky Mountain Philatelic Library. Ron graciously provided all of the illustrations used in this segment. I'm Ron Mitchell, and on behalf of the Rocky Mountain Philatelic Library, it's been my pleasure taking you through this portion of Tasmania's postal history, and I hope to see you again soon for one of our other video tutorials dealing with the many aspects of stamp collecting. See you then.